Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Requel pitch edition. And this is kind of a secondary pitch of one I'd done before. And I've thought about this a little bit more. I have a good friend, Brad, who you may have seen in some of my Krypton Report specials, and we were chit chatting. And with Universal Monsters being one of my favorite things, and the release of the Dark Universe at Orlando, Florida, which we will be attending, I was thinking Van Helsing. Talked about this before. And I feel like we've tried to make him more of the action guy. But we need to make him the unrelated. Okay, this is not that great of a pitch because it's kind of simple, but I look at who Van Helsing was in uh, the Stoker's novel and everything. We got to go back to that. But what we do is Van Helsing is a scientist, and we actually pull more from Indiana Jones. So let's just think this: the pitch is Van Helsing as Indiana Jones, right? He's a scientist. He's a he gets into action, he gets into trouble, but he's not a fighter. He's not that. And the premise is Van Helsing is a man who, and I would start with the vampire, okay? And I think Van Helsing should be in his 30s. I think doing it too young, I think doing this guy who's a scientist, who's a doctor, who's dabbled in different science, who's an investigator, who's also a teacher. I said very Indiana Jones like, but there is a village not too far that's having some things, and he has an open mind about things. But it's like one of the things I liked about, okay, for example, the Conjuring films, like the first one, particular good film, is they investigate, and most of the time it's not anything. Like they're not going and all of a sudden saying, "Oh, it's a monster, it's a demon, it's a ghost, whatever." They're like, "Nah, it's two creaky boards rubbing together." Okay. Um, and the idea is he wants to believe, he has the open minded, but he applies the scientific method, and he disproves stuff. And even though he disproves stuff, he still has the open mind, and there's others around him who mock him for it. But he's not crazy. He's not being dismissed. He is a respected scientist. And then he gets something going on, which leads to his first discovery, and it's a vampire that is plaguing um, a small village. And in this story in particular, it would end up being like one of Dracula's brides. The idea that they're going out and hunting and doing their own thing, and one of them's kind of disobeyed, the youngest one, the newest one. Okay? And this is Van Helsing's first really step into learning more of the supernatural and things, and him kind of proving and not having the means to. And you're kind of going on this journey very, excuse me, very much, like I said, it's a journey, but he is the reluctant action hero. Like things happen. He gets knocked down. He gets knocked out. You know, he is not your tough man, but he is your nerdy science. Like I said, very much Indiana Jones, but not as much of the coolness. It's more the awkwardness, and I think that's a really good premise. And I don't want to say for the first movie, but this idea of like this man who has maybe a family, and the idea of studying creatures, and he kind of does this, and he starts writing his own books, and maybe I don't know. Think about maybe like Van Helsing or whatever is a pen name. And, if he's younger, because like when we meet Van Helsing, he's older in the books and everything. And he starts writing it under the pen name of Van Helsing. And he's putting these books out, and he starts cataloging and, you know, the idea of the discovery that there are things beyond the normal, the natural. And, I'm also a big fan of Supernatural. I think the first 5 seasons are solid. Um, and kind of in that vein. I think trying to make him too much of a tough guy, monster hunter doesn't work. We've seen that. And then in the TV series or whatever, it's not him. It's a little crazy, but it's always more of the family lineage. And I like that. But I think really approaching it as Indiana Jones, like you have to bring in the teacher, the professor, the nerd aspect, because that's really what Abraham Van Helsing was. Um, and I think that could be a fun way, like back to Brendan Fraser's The Mummy was so good because it balanced the horror with some fun action adventure stuff. And Rick was like the too cool, and Jonathan was the goof. Now I don't need to go down. We don't need him to be Jonathan, but we need him. I kind of think of Dr. Grant in the first Jurassic Park kind of thing. Like this isn't really his thing, but he's trying to survive with these kids in the wild, kind of. And I think that would be more enjoyable. But what are your thoughts? You know, um, and him going off to explore and research is your into each monster, into the folklore, and then starting to make a little bit of his name for himself, and he becomes kind of this expert, but yet people pick on him because he studies this, but he's still a reputable man, um, not a crackpot. And that's your vehicle for helping do the other monster movies where he is kind of the lead and like, you know, but and then let's say we're doing a trilogy or even quadrilogy. The first film I pretty much described to you. The second film we could do where he's called, and it's different. It's gonna be werewolfism. Okay? And it brings us to him, kind of the Wolfman. Sweet. Then, we could have something where um, he goes off and investigates. Basically, the third film or fourth film. I would say fourth because I feel like you would need to set it up where I think Van Helsing, third film would be Van Helsing coming against or meeting Dr. Frankenstein and his experiments. And then the fourth film would be a reimagining of Dracula, where now he is older. He's been doing this a while. And I think, what you could do for fun is in your second film, have your kind of opening, and it's him kind of on an investigation, an expedition, and it's a mummy. Like, your first, like a prologue, 20, 50, or 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, kind of your mummy. Or something fun like a banshee or the creature from the Black Lagoon. So that you're seeing him do stuff, but that's not the whole of the film. And, when he goes home, we have little Easter eggs showing he's been doing this for a while. Little things have happened. He talks about it, references, journals, books. And we're able to navigate his life. I think that would be fun. And then, like I said, there's some ground rules and stuff that we have to establish, because I think when he goes against Dracula, Dracula needs to be more powerful. He's different than the vampire he encountered before, so some of the things that Van Helsing knows about vampires do not apply to Dracula. Also, Janine and I had watched Penny Dreadful, great series up until the last season. There's good parts in the last season, but as a whole, it kind of lost. It felt like it lost something, and it's sad because I really enjoyed it up until the final parts. Anyways, I think it could be fun that way, and of course, if you make sure that he has a family along the line, you can kind of spread that out and have him have children that go on to hunt monsters. But I think making kind of Dracula the last of his journey when he's a little older, like I said, like a fourth film, and with Dracula, maybe that's where he dies, battling Dracula, and it's kind of his swan song and his life's work. And he has two children, one who's more of the medical, one who is against the supernatural, and then one who's completely all in on investigating and the supernatural and all that. And then after their father's passing, the children come together and continue their legacy. But that's just my thoughts here on good old Van Helsing.